Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 1 of The Big Four, presented by the Tackle Talk podcast. This 4-part series takes a behind-the-scenes look at the 4 largest parent companies in fishing tackle who collectively own and control over 80 of the biggest brands in baits, rods, reels, line, and accessories. Today's guest is Senior Vice President of Fishing at GSM Outdoors, Crispin Powley. Episode 1 of The Big Four, presented by the Tackle Talk podcast, starts right now.
Hello, everybody. I'm Bill Dance, and you're listening to Tackle Talk.
This is the Tackle Talk podcast, brought to you by The Rod Locker. Premium gear and expert advice from a staff you can trust. Now, here's your host, Andrew Hayes.
Hey everybody, welcome to the first episode of a very special project here at the Tackle Talk podcast as we begin our series on the Big Four in fishing tackle. But before we dive into the episode today, I want to do things a little differently for these episodes. Today, we're going to thank our great partners here at the Tackle Talk podcast right off the bat so that you can listen to these entire episodes completely uninterrupted once the conversation begins. So first, we have to give a big thank you to our title sponsor, The Rod Locker. The Rod Locker is an incredible family-owned tackle shop located in Evansville, Indiana, that blends the selection and pricing of a big box store with the impeccable service and level of care that you get from your small-town tackle shop. Chad, Brian, Hans, Jacob, everybody over at The Rod Locker is incredible. No matter what you have questions about, if you're looking for a particular model of a rod or reel, or you have a question about a bait, they are there to help. And not only do they have an incredible selection of new rods and reels, they also have the internet's best selection of lightly used rods and reels as well, from all of your favorite brands at killer prices. They also have a simple trade-in program where you can turn your old gear into new gear. And if you mention the Tackle Talk podcast on your trade-in submission, you get an extra 10% boost on the value of your trade-in just for listening to Tackle Talk. All that, and you get an extra 5% off your order by using code TACKLETALKJUNE. Now, if you're listening to this in a different month, it's Tackle Talk, and then whatever month that you're currently in. Right now, as we are releasing these episodes, it is June. So the code is going to be Tackle Talk June at checkout for an extra 5% off basically everything on the website. So go check them out over at www.rodlocker.com and use code Tackle Talk June. All right, next up, we have to thank the battery company that powers the Tackle Talk podcast, Amped Outdoors. And the staff and product quality over at Amped Outdoors are just flat out better than any battery company that I've ever dealt with. Their pricing is insanely affordable for the quality product that you're getting. My batteries that I use are like half the price of the batteries that I used to use a few years ago from another company. And truthfully, I like these Amped Outdoors batteries better. They have better tech. They're waterproof. Their larger batteries come standard with Bluetooth monitoring on your phone and heated charging, and a 10-year no-hassle warranty handled by a great staff in Hudson, Wisconsin. Also, it's the little things like case quality, their handles, those little differences that make a battery so special. Amped Outdoors does it right. So whether you're looking for a 12-volt, 24-volt, or 36-volt battery for your trolling motor, your graphs, your live sonar, ice fishing, anything that you could need power for while you're fishing, Amped Outdoors has you covered. So go check them out over at www.ampedoutdoors.com. And finally, we have to thank the great team over at Humminbird and Minn Kota. Now, both of these brands on their own produce some of the most impressive electronics and motors in the fishing industry, but together, it's a whole different ballgame. Humminbird and Minn Kota are meticulously designed and manufactured to work in sync to help you get the most out of your boat and your kayak rig. So things like advanced GPS navigation that allows your Humminbird unit and mapping to communicate with your trolling motor, because then you can use features like autopilot, backtrack, circle mode, cruise control, drift mode, dodge mode, and a ton more options there. And those features allow you, the angler, to actually focus on fishing more so than precise navigation. And in turn, that helps you put more fish in the boat. You also have mega down and mega side imaging compatibility with certain units, eliminating the need for additional transducers and mounting brackets, and just providing you with better control over your sonar. And all that just scratches the surface of all of the benefits of running both Minn Kota and Humminbird together. So for more information about Humminbird and Minn Kota, you can head over to www.humminbird.com or minnkotamotors.com today. All right, everybody. Again, welcome to episode 1 of the Big Four presented by the Tackle Talk podcast. And as we talked about in last week's teaser for this series, this is 4 episodes over 4 weeks with exclusive sit-down conversations featuring high-level executives at the 4 largest tackle ownership groups in the bass fishing world. So those companies are GSM Outdoors, the first one, who owns Dobbins Rods, Phoenix Rods, Big Bite Baits, Bagley, Yamamoto, Bill Lewis, Robo Worm, Buckeye Lures, Steel Shad, and more. And then you have Rapala VMC Corporation, who owns Rapala, VMC, 13 Fishing, Storm, Suffix, Strike Master, Blue Fox, and more under their umbrella. And then there's Pradco Outdoors, who owns Yum, Booyah, Rebel, Bandit, Smithwick, Hedden, Cotton Cordell, War Eagle Spinnerbaits, Great Lakes Finesse, Arbogast, and more. And then your fourth is Pure Fishing. And Pure Fishing owns Berkeley, Abu Garcia, Fenwick, Penn, Ugly Stick, Savage Gear, Plano, and a ton more under their company as well. So between these 4 episodes, these 4 parent companies and equity companies own over 80 of the top bass fishing brands on the planet. And by my estimates, they account for over half of the dollars spent in freshwater bass fishing tackle sales. So these 4 companies, GSM Outdoors, Pure Fishing, Pradco, and Rapala VMC, truly are kind of the current day titans of tackle. So the premise of this series is a special one to me because I'm well aware, and I mention it in today's episode, and I mention it in some of the others too, that I have been guilty over the years of having a negative attitude towards some of these large parent companies and private equity companies in fishing. Because it's really easy to just be critical when you see one of your favorite companies changing hands or get bought or acquired by private equity. And I think it's normal to be apprehensive and kind of, maybe even distrusting of the new ownership group, or just the fact that you have the fishing world getting smaller and smaller by the day. The fact that over half of the dollars spent in the tackle world, over hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of brands, are essentially spent with one of these 4 conglomerate companies is kind of unnerving sometimes. But over the years, just through mutual friends or in passing, I've had a chance to meet some people at these 4 companies just indirectly, like nothing crazy, at trade shows or at events or things like that. You'll just run into somebody from time to time. And every single time I meet one of them, I'm just expecting this sort of like caricature of an old guy with white hair and a black suit and tie, smoking a cigar, counting his money and just ruining everything that he touches. But in my experience, that couldn't be farther from the truth, at least not with the people that I've got to meet over the years. So it just kind of seems like once you get past what the internet thinks and tells you to think about these companies and how they operate and how they work, what you find is that they're really made up of down-to-earth people, true diehard anglers that love fishing and really do want to make great products and make people happy. Now, at the end of the day, though, are all 4 of these businesses? Yes, they are. So you have to make business decisions when you're running a large company. And sometimes the things that come with that are cutting costs, cutting product lines, rebranding, leaning into trends. All of that is part of business because at the end of the day, no fishing company, whether they are owned by a single individual in their garage or a giant private equity company, they're not charities. They do exist to turn a profit. But I think these conversations will open a lot of people's eyes as to how they operate, who they are, who's behind these giant companies, and how each of them are kind of different and unique from each other. So I wanted this series to really kind of showcase the other side of things, not the side that you see on the internet comment section about how they're ruining the industry and they're terrible for everything, but a true peek behind the curtain at these companies from some high-level executives themselves, and then you can form your own opinions on these companies. But I think to do that, you need to see both sides. So this series was a beast to put together because these aren't just, 4 pro staffers from each company or 4 sponsored anglers. I wanted these to be kind of true people on the inside. And I wanted them from a variety of different positions too. So you'll see that throughout these 4 episodes. I didn't just get all 4 presidents. I have a president, we have a senior vice president, we have a vice president, and we have directors. We also have people that are like over the entire company in general. We have people that are more over the branding and certain brands. So you're going to see a lot of different viewpoints versus just having the same conversation 4 times over and over and over again. I wanted some variety with this 4-part series, and I think it turned out the way that I wanted it to. So today, our conversation is with the Senior Vice President of Fishing at GSM Outdoors, Mr. Crispin Powley. And we mentioned it at the top of the episode. We mentioned it last week, but because he is with GSM Outdoors, that means Crispin oversees Dobbins, Phoenix, Big Bite Baits, Yamamoto, Bagley, RoboWorm, Bill Lewis, Buckeye Lures, Steel Shad, and more. So how is GSM different than its other 3 counterparts in this series? What makes them unique? What are their goals? How do they decide who and when to acquire somebody? What do we get wrong about GSM? And who better to ask that than the Senior Vice President of Fishing for the entire company? So that's what we have in store for you all today. So buckle up and enjoy episode 1 of The Big 4 and our exclusive sit down with the Senior Vice President of Fishing at GSM, Mr. Crispin Powley. All right, ladies and gentlemen, today we are joined by Senior Vice President of Fishing at GSM. It's Crispin Powley. Crispin, thank you so much for stopping by today. We appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me on. I've been excited about this since you reached out to me. If I understand things correctly, we're going to talk about one of my favorite topics on earth, and that's fishing and fishing tackle. So I'm always up for that.
Well, you're in the right place for that, Tackle Talk. Yeah, it's definitely what we would do. But I appreciate you hopping on, because when I reached out to you the first time and I said, hey, I have this idea for a multi-part series where I really want to talk to someone from like kind of what I would call the big 4, like the 4 biggest parent companies in fishing tackle right now, and really kind of peel back the layers of that onion to say, hey, what really goes on at these places? What's the process look like? What does it do to certain brands? What does your day-to-day look like? Because I think sometimes we have a tendency sometimes to think in a negative light about big companies and big private equity and everything. And it's just, I know there's a lot more to it than that. So I'm excited for this. Before we get into all of that though, your title, Senior Vice President of Fishing at GSM, has to be like one of the coolest titles you can have, of a president or vice president of fishing. What does your day-to-day actually look like at GSM? And I know obviously you've been there for a while now. What has your kind of career trajectory looked like up to this point?
Yeah, sure. I don't know exactly what Senior VP of Fishing means. I probably take a little bit of liberty with that depending on what I want to do that day. But no, it is, if you'd have told 12-year-old me that my title someday would be that, I would have been like, no way. So it is pretty cool, and I appreciate that. But yeah, to give you just a super quick kind of tour of how I got here. I grew up in a family that nobody hunted or fished. And I played ball growing up. I actually got into fishing through I had an uncle that took me fishing a bunch when I was a kid, an uncle by marriage. And then I had some of my best friends growing up. Their parents would let me tag along. They were in bass clubs, and they would have like a kids' day and, stuff like that. So I fell in love with fishing. I mean, I remember trading baseball cards at school for rods and reels. Like we didn't have a lot growing up, and I tried to find a way to fuel my habit. Right. So that was kind of my introduction to fishing. And from then on, I started fishing tournaments with one of my uncles when I was like 11, and fished as much as I could throughout high school, but you had sports in school. I actually went to college. I rodeoed in college.
Oh, wow.
That was kind of where I thought my life was going to take me, and I got hurt, and that's kind of a young man's game. And so this is the funniest part of my career path. I love to tell this story, and I only get to do it every so often. So thank you for the platform. But I was riding bulls for a living. I got hurt and had to get a job, had debt. I'd run up credit cards to pay entry fees. The world of rodeo and fishing pro fishing are very parallel. There's a lot of similarities. And I went to work for this little small town municipality water department, and it was like June. It was a really hot Tennessee muggy June day, and I'm got on a pair of hip boots, and we're working on a broken sewer main. And it was like, you can imagine how much fun that is. And literally, a guy drove by pulling a brand new, I'll never forget it. It was a 20 SS Extreme Stratus boat with a 225 Evinrude, one of the Rude Ram Evinrude engines. And I looked at the guy I was working with and I said, I'm quitting today and I'm going to go buy one of those and figure out how to make a living in it. And I did.
That's crazy.
I quit. Had enough credit, went and bought a boat and started fishing tournaments and guiding. And I had built tackle from the time I was a kid. I had access to my uncle that got me into fishing, kind of fueled that for me. He bought me molds and lead pouring pots. And, we didn't have YouTube back then, right? We didn't have the internet back then. That's how old I am. So I just, scratched and clawed, read books, tried to get information. And I started building jigs and spinnerbaits and buzzbaits, sold them to some little local tackle shops, hung a bunch of them up and lost them, gave them to my buddies and so forth. So I just love tackle. I love fishing, specifically bass fishing. And that turned into, I was fishing a lot. I had days where between tournaments, guiding, and just fishing, I'd fish 300 days a year, a lot of fishing. And I ended up getting a job because I wasn't making enough money to, the dream was there, but I just didn't really have, I was not the next coming of KVD or anything. I wasn't just setting the world on fire. I wasn't, Drew Gill or one of these young guys. So I had a job and, but I was fishing as much as I could. And I found jobs that allowed me to fish, right? Like that was the criteria. Hey, I would love to hire you. And I'd be like, well, I'm only interested if I can be off to practice on Thursday and Friday and fish tournaments on Saturday and so forth. So I ended up fishing this tournament series that was put on by Stratus boats. Because like I told you, I saw that Stratus boat go by that day. I went and bought one. That's what I had. And I ended up doing really well. I had a partner, Luke Mulroney. We were fishing team tournaments together, and we did really well there for a couple years. And we came in second in the Stratus Owners World Championship, like owners tour. And about 2 weeks later, I got a call from Teresa Johnson, who's at Phoenix Boats now. She was at Stratus at the time, but she offered me a job. And I thought to myself, my young self, this will teach me a side of the industry that will give me a leg up when I'm fishing for a living. Well, as it turned out, I never got back on the I'm fishing for a living side. I stayed over here and I worked for Stratus. Worked my way up to marketing director. For like 4.5 years. And then I went to work for Strike King, which was one of the greatest jobs I've ever had. It was awesome. Best group of people, the brand. I got to see it during that meteoric rise and got to be part of that. And so I was there for a little over 17 years, went from Strike King to Rather Outdoors. And then about 4.5 years ago, a buddy of mine that has been at GSM, he's Zach Henderson, he's the chief sales officer over here. He called me one day and said, hey, we want to get into fishing. And I said, oh, that's awesome. I mean, what can I do? I can help you find somebody. And he's like, no, I'm calling you because we want to get into fishing and we need somebody to drive this thing, And I was like, man, I'm pretty happy where I'm at. Like, I kind of always thought I'd just retire wearing a Strike King hat, and just not extremely ambitious in terms of a career, but just like where my heart was, but anyway, as things worked out after a lot of prayer and consultation from some people I really lean into as business mentors, I ended up taking that leap from Rather Outdoors and came to GSM, and we owned exactly 0 fishing brands when I came here. And that was 4.5 years ago, and we have 16 now. So it's been a pretty rapid ascent from nothing to 16 brands.
A couple things there. One, it's cool that you're, and people will know listening to what you just said, you're an actual angler at heart. Like, I think there is this picture in your brain sometimes when you think of these big companies of like, oh, it's some dude in a suit from halfway around the world that's just like Scrooge McDucking the fishing world. It's like, no, it's a dude that was, making tackle in a shed and selling it to local tackle shops. Like, that's who you bring on to lead this thing. Because you're right. You were or GSM, I guess, was very heavy in the hunting space. And then at probably 2021 timeframe, really just shot into fishing. And I think the cool part about this conversation versus, some of the other big parent companies is you have had that just rapid growth. I mean, just shot out of a cannon over the last 5 years. When you see a company that, the owner is retiring or sells or something, like, it's GSM that's really taking the lead and acquiring a lot of these companies. And so I think that's really cool because you have a lot of deep roots, big companies. You have your Pure Fishings and, all of those, Pradco, it's been around for a long time, and those folks, but they are not in the aggressive acquisition mode like you guys have been in the past couple years. So if you look down your list, I mean, I think the first one that I remember, the domino that fell, was Yamamoto. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that was the first one.
That was number one, correct?
Yeah, where I was just looking, I was like, well, one, weird that Gary Yamamoto's not with Yamamoto anymore or doesn't own it. But two, who is GSM? Like, I had never really heard of you because I hunt a little bit, but I'm not dialed into the hunting world. And then I slowly pay attention. And then I think the next year it was Bill Lewis, and it was Buckeye Lures and Steel Shad Lures. And then in 2023, you guys did Big Bite. I think you did Phoenix, maybe around there. So like you started to build this brand. And then the last year and a half, you had Dobbins, you had RoboWorm, you had Buka Brands, Northland. So you have this big portfolio now of companies that you've been able to acquire. What has the last 5 years looked like for you all? And a side note, how do you choose which of these brands you go after when you're building this portfolio for the first time?
Yeah, and those are wonderful questions. The last 5 years have been, to answer that one first, has been a blur. I mean, a blur. I am at heart a brand guy. Like, this is my brand. It's my baby. I'll fight for it. I'll build it and grow it and nurture it. And I'm having to kind of learn how to be that across multiple brands, right? And, really focus on each brand's unique identity. Because what I don't like, and this is what people don't like about private equity, this is what people don't like about, conglomeration and things of that nature. I don't like when somebody takes a brand that's known for this and then tries to push it into this, take this square peg and try to fit it in this round hole, because the round hole kind of fits their business model, but it's not what that brand is. And I have fought that. Not that my guys internally have pushed it on me. It's honestly just kind of an easy, natural progression when you own multiple brands to go, hey, this works really well at Yamamoto. We should do this at Big Bite. And then you step back and go, that's not at all what Big Bite is, right? Like, so that the last 5 years for me has been kind of redefining and kind of getting my arms wrapped around it's okay to have this many brands and run them all like they're independent brands. The cool thing we have is now Yamamoto, Big Bite, Dobbins, Northland, Buka, Robo, whatever, name them all, has this incredible amount of synergy with our resources, right? So we can combine shipping. We can, you can buy 16 brands. We can put them all on one pallet and ship it to your local tackle shop, and they're not having to spend shipping on all these uniquely different brands. But the cool thing is, and this is, let me not get ahead of myself. So you asked the question, how do you kind of identify the brands that you go after? And quite honestly, it is just, I grew up in this industry. I've known Gary Yamamoto for 20 years. Derek and I were really, Gary's son, we're really good buddies back in the day. And I've been in this industry my whole life pretty much, and as an avid angler, like when I sat down and told my boss, like, there's this brand called RoboWorm that you've never heard of, but I have, and a million other guys have, but they've just kind of done this thing. But man, the guy that it's Greg, like, I deal with all the owners in the acquisition process, and like, you talked about like Yamamoto. It's weird that Gary's not there. Man, what a picture of the American dream. This guy built this thing up, and we give him that payout that he always looked forward to, right? Oh, and by the way, one of the reasons that we've been successful at acquiring brands is, and I hope this, I try to be humble and I want this to be humble, but it's something I'm very proud of. This is something that we hang our hat on. We buy brands and steward them well. We don't buy brands and go, okay, how can we just cut this down to cut out these many SKUs to keep this percentage of profit or margin or revenue or whatever your metric is, like Steel Shad. So many people have never heard of Steel Shad, but I live on Kentucky Lake. I'm a Tennessee River junkie, and man, that Steel Shad will catch them. So another thing I told my boss, I'm like, it's a very under-resourced brand. They've got a great product. Well, we've grown it from about 12 SKUs to about 80 SKUs. Yamamoto, we've added a gazillion SKUs, and I think we've cut 4 in 4 years. That's one of the things that drives me crazy. If I could speak on a pet peeve, everybody's like, oh, y'all discontinued this, you discontinued that. And I'm like, nah. Like, I know it may feel that way because the package looks different, but we really haven't, And the cool thing is, and this is where I'd like to park for a second if I could. I have surrounded myself with the best people I could find. And that, I don't care what you're selling. I don't care if you're selling baits. I don't care if you're selling, I'm looking at a bunch of stuff in my shop. I don't care if you're selling air compressors, whatever it is, it's all about the people. At the end of the day, it is about the people. It's about the people who drive it, who love it, and care for it and grow it and oversee it. And I've got people that they are the most passionate, hardcore, avid end users you could have. And that matters. Like, to your point, like, nobody wears a suit and tie in this org, right? Like, this is what I wear to work every day. If I have to go meet with a buyer or something, right? Like, I put a button down on, but we, no offense if golf's your thing, but we don't golf, we fish. And that's just who we are. When we acquired Bill Lewis, the best part of that acquisition was 2 people. Out of everything. The iconic rattle trap is part of that deal. And to this day, I would still tell you Wes Higgins and D. Davis that stayed on with us are the best part of that deal. Wes Higgins is Bill Lewis's grandson. And I talk to him 22 times a day. He still runs that brand like it's his. Like, it's the people. When we acquired Northland, we got 2 guys, Jason, Charlie Peterson. If you know anything about the history of Northland, it was started by a man named John Peterson. That's their uncle. They grew up in that brand. Who better to champion that brand than the kid who has grown up wearing a Northland hat? Jack Dice. You may or may not know who Jack is. Jack is my director of product development, and Jack Dice was the first guy out of making the elites this year through the EQs. Like, this kid is a hardcore fisherman, and there's not a product we come out with that he doesn't run through the paces. And, we've got great pros. So it's the way we approach things is the brand itself needs to be meaningful, and we need to be able to resource it with people who care about it like it is their livelihood, because it is. And it's not like a lot of other corporate strategy where it's EBITDA and it's cash flow and it's revenue. Yeah, all that matters. I have somebody over me that's what they care about, but I get to drive the boat, and we care about the brands,
Yeah, well, it's a good point too. It's like, if you do have all of these brands become the omni brand, then it ends up actually hurting your bottom line and not helping your bottom line. It might help
Absolutely.
for like a very short time frame where you're like, oh, we can save some cost here, we can do whatever. And, maybe year 1 looks really okay, but your long-term growth plan doesn't happen because everything that made those brands special in the first place and built those cult followings are just completely gone for the sake of saving 17% on this or that, and it's not worth it at the end of the day.
You're exactly right.
The other point that's a good point is like helping some of these brands grow. I think Steel Shad's a good example. There's a lot of brands that will hit this plateau where with the resources they have, this is as big as they can get. This is as much product as they can make. This is as much leverage as they have for buying power and supplies and manufacturing and all that kind of stuff. I told you before we started recording, but I work for a baseball team and we got bought by private equity this year. And I think at first it was very easy for us to be like, oh my gosh, like here it goes, beginning of the end, everything's going to change. They're going to start cutting or whatever. It's been the polar opposite. It's been a great thing for us because they came in, they didn't change anything that works. And they basically said, hey, we have more resources now. So we needed to put an addition onto the stadium. That would have been a pain in the tail to fund. But this private equity company was like, hey, if you need this addition and it's going to make you money in the long run, here you go for it. And so that type of stuff is probably what you're bringing to some of these smaller brands is, hey, the power now that you have and the leverage that you have with prospective manufacturers and pricing. We're in a point right now where it's price increase palooza for especially all these smaller brands because they don't have the power. Has that helped you kind of insulate yourself in a lot of this price increase landscape?
Yeah, it has. It's and you hit it. I mean, it's a term that kind of can get a black eye, but it can be a very positive thing too, and that's leverage, right? Yeah. When I'm dealing with a rod tube manufacturer and I need rod tubes for Phoenix and Dobbins and Bonehead, 3 brands we make rods under, I have more leverage because I'm going to buy more rod tubes. It's not like, hey, let's put cheaper treble hooks on this rattle trap. It's how can we go to the hook company and go, hey, I'm not just buying them for rattle trap now. I'm buying them for Northland as well. And I'm buying them for, you know what I mean? So it helps us maintain the margin that we have to make to operate without, reaching into the consumer's pocket. Because I don't know if you can tell, but I buy a lot of tackle myself.
I can tell by the wall behind you. Yeah.
And this is one little small piece of one wall. And the funny thing is 50% of this shop is not our brands. It's just tackle that I buy and use and have bought and so forth. But I feel that as well when I'm buying tackle and go, God, that used to be like that tungsten weight. What a great example. Mm-hmm. That tungsten weight used to cost me, $4.99 for a 2-pack, and now it's $8.99, and we're in a very unique place in the industry right now with sourcing and tariffs and just all the challenges. And we fight tooth and nail every day to try to make things that anglers can afford to buy. That is a filter that we run things through. Not how much can we make? Can we make this where a guy can go afford to buy 3 of them? That's important to me and my team.
How do you manage competing brands in your portfolio? A good example would be Phoenix and Dobbins. You could go Yamamoto and Big Bite. You have similar brands that have their own kind of identity a little bit, but at the same point, if you are bringing them all under the GSM umbrella, then, there is that devil on your shoulder that is hey, I have to protect brand A for brand B or vice versa, or you have to make some tough choices. Or do you just say, your example of, Bill Lewis and Rattle Trap and having someone that basically runs that company like their baby, do you just kind of separate them off enough where they have separate staff that keep that brand's interest at heart so that, you still kind of have some natural competition where you're not having your finger on the pulse of everything?
Yeah, we've got a little bit of that. But truthfully, we just got a brand strategy that we kind of adhere to. And I learned that early on in my days at Stratus. When I was at Stratus Boats, we owned Stratus, we owned Champion, we built them in the same building, and we were owned by Genmar, who owned Ranger. So I learned a little bit about the shell game, right, back then. But I would tell you, let's use those as examples. Those are great examples. Yamamoto, in my mind, and I think every other consumer, it is as premium as plastic gets. It is. It's made in Arizona. It is a unique process. I'll tell you a really quick funny story. I built baits at Strike King to compete with the Cinco and with some other Yamamoto products, the Blade Minnow to compete with the Zaco. And I played a hand in designing the Ocho and all those things that compete with Yamamoto products. And so the first time I went to Page, Arizona, I walked in there, I met everybody and I said, hey, I don't want to be rude. I want to go see where you make the baits. we'll go to lunch. I'll get to know everybody. Take me to where you build Cincos. And they carried me in there, and my jaw dropped, and they were like, now, do you want to go? So I was like, nope, just give me, let me take this in, because I'm a bait builder at heart. Right. And so Yamamoto is such a hands-on, very premium. The cool thing is, and it's another kind of fallacy of corporate America and private equity, the same guy that built the first Cinco for Gary is the same guy that turned the lights on in that building today, right? Like, it's the same people doing what they love. They're good at it. We've kept them on and paid them well because they're good at it. So Yamamoto is this premium product that we market as such. We come to market with things that we're not worried about them being the cheapest, because they're not. That's not who that brand is. It never has been. It never will be. Big Bite, on the other hand, when we scale out a project and run it through our stages and gates to get it to an end, a finished product, one of the big criteria that we meet is this affordably priced? I don't want this to sound the way, and I'm sure I'll be misquoted on this, and that's okay, but I don't care about that with Yamamoto. I don't. People that are Yamamoto purists, they will pay $9 for a bag of Cincos over somebody's $3.99 baits because they believe in them. We don't go that way with Big Bite, right? It's kind of like good, better, best, and I've got Yamamoto at best, and I've got Big Bite at good to better, somewhere in that range, right? Phoenix and Dobbins, another great example. Phoenix, both oddly enough, are kind of West Coast influence with Gary, and Phoenix has been around since the 70s and on the West Coast. But Phoenix has a lot of like Asian influence in the design, a lot of JDM feel to it, where honestly, Gary just built kind of a tried and true kind of an American bass rod, full cork grips, like what I grew up fishing with All-Star and Castaway and those kind of things, So, I mean, they're just different animals, and we treat them differently. So I hope that kind of somewhat gets in the realm of what you were looking for.
Yeah. So what about when you're developing new products? What does that process look like when you are, one of the companies at GSM versus a company that's completely out on your own? Like, are you involved in the new products that are coming to market for every one of these brands? Are they kind of making them themselves and then bringing them to you for approval? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, so product development is honestly my passion in all of this. If I ever go, hey, this managing umpteen brands is not for me, I'll design baits for somebody. That's what I'll do until I ride off in the sunset and go elk hunting for the rest of my life or something. But with that being said, I have got an incredible, one of the things that I learned at Strike King, and I say this a lot, and it's an incredible compliment to the people there and the people that were there before them, who I really learned under. I'm not running this new playbook, right? Like, I learned a ton during in my opinion, one of the most historic runs any company's ever gone on, when KVD was on a tear, and that era of Strike King. I have managed, thankfully, to assemble a pro staff that is very diverse, but guys that aren't just good fishermen. They're intelligent, they're articulate, and they serve as incredible product development aids, right? And then I pair them with a guy like Jack Dice, who I spoke to earlier, where Jack can tell you every intricacy of every bait, because he's honestly an incredible angler. But you take Jack and sit him down with Jake Lawrence and go, Jake, what do you want? Yeah, you're a forward-facing sonar guru, or Drew Gill. What do you want? Well, the funny thing is, they both wanted two uniquely different things. So one's Yamamoto, one's Big Bite. They're very uniquely different. But at the end of the day, Jack drives most of all the tackle new product. Jack drives the ice stuff and the upper Midwest Northland stuff, not as much, not really his game. One of the mistakes I think big companies make is they bring somebody in and give them a title, but they don't really have the resume. I don't care what you're called. This is the dumbest thing you're ever going to hear somebody say, probably, and I'm used to that, so we're good. But I don't care what your degree is in. I don't care what your. I don't care what. I don't care. I care. Do you know what I am hiring you to manage? Are you an expert on it, and are you passionate about it? Because if you're that, I don't care if you majored in auto mechanics. If you're a hardcore fisher, I've known some guys that changed transmissions for a living that were some of the best fishermen I ever met in my life and knew a lot about baits. It's the most uncorporate answer you'll ever get. But that's who I am at my core, right? Like I'm in a corporate role, but I am the least corporate human, um, and I like that. I'm okay with that, and I think that leads us to a point to where we're doing things for the right reasons.
I agree. I think we're in one of the industries where your pedigree can be your downfall sometimes.
That's well put.
Like, I think if you are too qualified on paper, or, you took one route, it's like, I want the guy making my baits that catches 4,000 fish a year. And, I don't care if he can spell encyclopedia. I care if he understands how bass fishing works and how, water moves around this flange on the back of a tail. Like, that's what I care about. I don't care if he went to Brown or whatever, or has, 12 degrees. Like, I want the guy's going to help me catch more fish. And so, yeah, I think, and sometimes in fishing, I'm a redneck kid at heart. Like, we kind of scoff at those people sometimes. Like, you don't want somebody that's the suit that is telling you how to do things. You want someone like us.
And the truth of the matter is, I think it's about experience, and it's not just fishing experience. It's experience about relationships, and it's experience in the realm of mentorship. And like, I got to mentor under a guy named Phil Marks, and in my mind, Phil has been one of the most influential people in the history of fishing tackle. Started with Stanley, worked for Lonnie, and then came to Strike King. And I got to work with Phil on the XDs and the red eye shads and all that stuff, the KVD square bills and all that stuff. And I don't have a college degree, right? I went to college to rodeo, and it doesn't really have a lot to do with fishing lures, but I got to spend time with people who were just phenoms in their field. And man, I mean, I know how to make a crankbait do this or that and make it run deeper, wobble wider, or whatever, without ever having taken a class on that, right? And so that's just kind of who we are. I've got, don't get me wrong. I've got two young guys that run social media that are stud social media guys, but I know one of them fished a derby Saturday. That's what they do. They have marketing degrees, but their marketing degree is not what qualifies them. It's because they speak the language. Like, they're fluent in the native tongue of the angler, right?
And we can tell really fast when someone is not.
Yeah, 100%.
The fishing world can sniff out a fake a mile away.
Some of my favorite things are, you can tell the moment really sharp people that work for ad agencies and media collectives and so forth. But I can't tell you how many times I've seen the upside down spinning reel, or the spinner bait that's they put it in the picture upside down, or we know, like, if this is who you are, you just know. And I want people that live it, man. I mean, to me, that's the secret sauce. I'll say it time and time again. It's the people. You can take a great brand and put crappy people running it, and that brand, I don't care how big it is today, it'll fail. You can take an average brand and put incredibly avid, passionate people behind it, and in that same time frame, that brand will flourish. It's people.
So when you're talking about some of these brands, like, there is a difference at the end of the day between a company that is savvy enough to have the bottom line be a big deal to them versus some guy's passion project for, a bait company. So when you do acquire some of these brands, are there certain things that just have to change at some point? Like, you have to know when to cut a bait. Like, cut it out of the lineup. It's not selling. Yeah. I know you love this bait. I know that you worked so hard on it, and it's something that you've just held on to for 5 years, but man, it sells 0.00002% of your SKUs of the year, and we're going to have to cut this at some point. Where does that line get drawn on, like, where you have to make some of those tough decisions with brands?
That is that is a process that we call, and most everybody in the industry calls, SKU rationalization. So basically, every individual item number represents one individual product, and that is referred to as a SKU. And don't even ask me what the analogy is for. I don't know. Once again, not that corporate guy, but I've called it a SKU for 20 years or 25 now. But I can't tell you how many products that I have personally designed that are fish catchers. I've got boxes of them, but they, for whatever reason, timing, lack of placement, a new trend hits and it just leapfrogs something that you think is super cool. It's like the literally like going to your kid and going, "Hey, I've got to take you off the team." Right.
Yeah.
And it's terrible. I care so much about every single project there. I mean this, like we stress over this. Like when we do SKU rationalization, it's like, all right, look, and I'm just completely making this up, but this 10-inch skirted worm from Yamamoto is just not there's no such thing, by the way, but they're just not selling. Right. And I promise you, without fail, we just go, "Hey, look, it's just time to pull the plug on the life support. We've let it go longer than it should. It's time for it to go to bait heaven, and we're going to cut our losses and have fond memories of the times that we caught them when we were developing it." And so I will guarantee you within the next 2 months, I'll get 10 people message me and go, "Why did you kill this bait? Why did you?" Because you didn't buy but 2 of them a year over a 3-year span. But man, you are mad at me. And I would keep them all. Look at me. Does it look like I don't like baits?
Doesn't look like you're trimming much.
All. Yeah, I would keep them all. But at the end of the day, there is a business aspect of this too. My kids will be hungry if I don't also adhere to some pretty sound business principles, which each SKU's got to pay its rent. Like that's the way you kind of got to look at it. The analogy I've used is that warehouse is like an apartment complex, and each one of those bins is an apartment. And if this tenant doesn't pay his rent, you got to get rid of him and get one in there who does. Everybody that's mad at me about discontinuing a bait would do the same thing if they owned that apartment complex. But that's just the part of the hat you have to wear.
So what about the other side then? I guess if we want to go like the happier side of things, what are some of the other ancillary benefits to a company that you bring on? Like I know we talked about earlier, yes, you have more leverage and I'm sure you can buy in more bulk different pieces, which means your cost of goods go down a little bit, and that's great. But what about like some of the things you can help them with sales wise? Like if it's end cap space, if it's getting them in certain retailers they couldn't get in, or things like that. Are there other benefits to coming into a company like GSM versus just like sticking it out yourself and maybe getting distributed by Pittman Creek or something?
Sure. And Pittman's a great partner of ours. And even to this day, our everything we sell, goes through them as well. Right.
Yeah.
But with all that being said, yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the things immediately that we bring to a brand is a very focused marketing approach that oftentimes is a very small line item on a smaller brand. The guys at Buckeye, Jeremy and his dad, who started that brand, I've thrown a spot remover since it first came out. I fished a BFL regional on Clark's Hill, and that's spot remover country and Buckeye country. Yeah. And that's when I kind of fell in love with that brand. Those guys weren't spending a ton of money on marketing. Like they hit a really good liquid spot remover and the mop jig and a couple other things that kind of Buckeye's known for. But they were just kind of doing their thing. Gary Yamamoto is a great example. They sold a buttload of Senkos, and that was okay. Well, you'll see an uptick in, hey, consumer, we want to make sure that that we make all these products, and this pro is going to tell you why this is his choice. And so one of the immediate things that we give to a brand is increased visibility in the marketplace. Another thing, I tell you what's cool is I've learned a lot from these guys that built these companies that we've bought are intelligent people, or they wouldn't have been that successful. So one of my greatest benefits is getting to know each of the owners, and really, Greg at Robo was literally, it's called RoboWorm. That guy was a robotic engineer. Like, the guy is a genius. And I've got to have opportunities to have, or I've had opportunities to have long conversations with him where I just get to pick his brain, and we get to take all this knowledge from, um, the robo people, and from Gary Dobbins and the guys from Phoenix, and combine it all and go, hey, we've been trying to do it this way, but he says this is the way to do it. So there's a lot of mutual benefit. They get to ride off into the sunset. Like, we're not going in there and going, hey, we're just scraping, this kind of is a big full circle to a question you asked earlier, but we're not just sitting out there going, hey, who's on the downhill slide that we can go buy? Dobbins was having record years. Northland was having record years. Bill Lewis was on an incredible, they had kind of dipped, and then Wes had done a phenomenal job, working with Mark Daniels and some guys to build that brand back up. And so we're not like bargain shopping. We're looking for things that we feel like, hey, that's a great fit for our portfolio. We can resource that brand well, and our marketing, our synergies with manufacturing, and our sales force is another big thing. A brand like a Steel Shad, I'm just picking on that because it's the smallest brand we've acquired. They're probably not getting a lot of face time with the buyers at every major account, where when we walk in there, we get that time, right? So we give that brand a boost almost out of the gate.
I mean, it's a good point too. You're not really a liquidation outlet for fishing companies, right? You're not bailing these companies out of bankruptcy. It's quite the opposite. You're buying some pretty successful companies, and with that comes a lot of angst sometimes. I think that's probably where a lot of it comes from. Is like, you are not buying brands that people are like, okay, thank goodness somebody saved these people, or else they would have gone out. It's like, no, you're buying my favorite rod brand. You're buying my favorite, soft plastic brand. Right. So there's some good and bad to that too, for sure. How do you manage the growth expectations of those companies though when you buy them? Because you said, hey, we acquire this company, we expect, some immediate growth on that. Is every company different, or do you have like a year-over-year growth number that you have figured, okay, if we're going to invest the money into acquiring this company, we need to see, X% year-over-year for the first 3 years, and we think we could do that?
So that is a thing, but it's a little different for each brand. So yes and yes. Okay. Every brand, once again, has its own kind of aura, right? And I don't get to use that word a lot. That was fun.
There we
go. but every brand does. It has its own kind of life form, and you look at a Dobbins that was, when we bought it, Gary had done a tremendous job, and he was he had really well thought out series of rods, not a lot of gaps in there. Honestly, that's a tough one to go, okay, like Robo. I'm going to give you two polar opposites. Robo just had not spent a lot of time trying to penetrate the Eastern United States. Now, the guys who knew. The guys who, throw a drop shot, throw a Robo straight tail, right? But, a Morning Dawn Robo straight tail worm. But they weren't going and like beating down the doors east of the Mississippi going, hey, we've got the best finesse worm on earth. So we can see an immediate uptick there with, honestly, not even any development. Let's just go focus here where they haven't. Dobbins, on the other hand, had done a tremendous job nationwide. And our goal there really was just to be better suppliers and to be, utilize and leverage our relationships with buyers and chains and distributors and so forth. But yeah, at the same time, I'm not going to be in the seat very long if I don't have a plan to show growth. But where my background comes from and what I tell you, if I have a strength in this game, it is product development. So I tell my CEO, you give me 2 cycles of product development and we can turn anything on its ear, which I think you've seen that from our brands with Yamamoto and Bill Lewis, and Buka brand's a tremendous example of, we literally bought Petchco out when you kind of, disintegrated, and we bought. I've known Mike Buka for 20 years, and back to I don't know if you've ever heard of the bass fishing homepage back in the day, but it was like the forum, right?
Yeah.
And I was real active on there and knew Mike from there. So we took that, and he had like 4 baits, I think. The baby bull shad, the baby bullgill, the buzzing, and maybe the rat. So 4-ish baits, right? And we've added tons of stuff to that brand because this is what this brand is. It is, Mike's vision for his, ABS lures was, we want to resource that angler who's not spending $200 on a resin trick shad. We'll sell him one for 40. And so every brand, once again, to make a long story long, every brand is very uniquely different, but we have to figure out how to grow them. And if you're doing it right, it happens. It just happens. And thankfully, and this is once again a testament to our brands and to our team, thankfully, it's happened with all of our brands. Every one of our brands are on a great sales trend. But it all stems from giving that brand what it needs, be it sales, marketing, and product development. I mean, it's not, I wish I would, had this little playbook like that dude off of The Water Boy, where you just clutch it and you don't let anybody see it. But I don't, man. It's just treat the brand the way it needs to be treated, and the consumer will take care of you.
Well, this is kind of why I wanted to do these episodes too, because I think when you see like a brand that you love become one of these, parent companies, sub brands now, growth is cool. Like, I'm cool with growth as long as growth comes from true growth and not from cuts. Like, as long as if you're just selling more Dobbins rods, me as a guy that loves Dobbins, we're all cool. That's awesome. That's a great thing. Happy about it. The second that you grow Dobbins by switching out to a cheaper blank and not, because the volume isn't there, so we got to make that cut somewhere, that's where people have a problem, obviously. And, it sounds like you guys have been able to avoid that part. Yeah.
Yeah, as do I. I mean, I'm an avid user of these products. I'm an avid hunter, and I have things that these are the brands, the products that I invest in to make my time count when I have that time. And I'm the same way. Don't cut corners on the product. But one of the funniest things is, like, I keep too much of an eye on social media, probably because I take this very personally, more than I should. I do. I take this personally because it's not just those, this big corporate deal. It's my family, my friends, these, and I'm getting better about not having to throw rocks at every dog that barks. But which is actually kind of a funny backstory about the first time you and I ever communicated.
I was about to say, go for it. Yeah.
Because coming out of ICAST, you picked, I think, the bubbler blade is like the dumbest product at the show.
Yeah,
and
I did.
The fact is, here to tell you a cool story. If you know who Todd Castledine is, Todd is a hammer, right? Like, I hired him to work for me at Rather. He still works there in product development, but Todd doesn't need a job. Todd can make all the money he wants fishing derbies in Texas or anywhere else he chooses to go. But he and I were on Lake Nacogdoches in his hometown one day, and I built one of those out of a Strike King spinnerbait and wailed on them. Just wailed on them because I couldn't fish a swim jig through the hay grass.
You need to keep it up.
Yep, and they were eating a plopper, but I couldn't throw a plopper in there. So I took a plopper buzzbait apart, put it on a spinnerbait frame, and started
Frankensteined it.
When I say I wrecked them, man, I wrecked them. And I was like, I'm always going to come out with this. I'm going to come out with, because the people at River to Sea are awesome. They've done some incredible things, but the weakness of that style bait, it's super popular in the Ozarks. Dock cables are like the enemy of a plopper style bait,
especially the trebles you can throw on those things. Holy smokes!
That's right. They're gaffs, right?
Yeah.
And so I wanted a plopper that I could fish places you can't fish a plopper. So that's the bubbler blade. And it doesn't look like, when you look at it, you go, yeah, but throw the thing, right? Like
Yeah.
it's different. It's nothing out there like it. So anyway, you made that. And of course, I'm scrolling Instagram one day. I was in a product development meeting. I had my whole team in, and I'm like, this. I guess they're just like, so I messaged you
Yeah, you
and
did.
I was like, come on, bro, at least
Yeah.
let's talk about it. Like, let me tell you what it is. But I do. I mean, I care. I know it sounds dumb probably, but I just like, I care so much about these brands and I care so much about the project.
And you should.
Yeah. But so circling back, the Dobbins Community Forum on Facebook is like the scariest place that I reside. Right?
I remember
like,
those first couple months after. Oh
bro,
my goodness. Yeah.
People were posting my name and my email and like, this is the guy that's killed our favorite brand. We're going to burn his house. Dude, I have text or Facebook messages screenshot where like literally, if you change the Cinco, I'll burn your house down. Like seriously, like maniacal stuff.
What's interesting though is that also, it's a double-edged sword, because to me, that would say, well, good, we bought the right brand. We have
100%.
people that are so now, yeah, don't go committing arson or threatening the guy's family. But I mean, like, you have people that are so passionate about that brand. You didn't buy some brand that no one cares about, that you have now a flip project on your hands where you're like, oh, we got to spin this to the public as a great brand and we have to make our money that way. It's like, no, you bought a brand that is beloved, and you have a ton of brands in your portfolio that are beloved brands.
Absolutely.
I mean, RoboWorm, Dobbins, Yamamoto, all of those. I mean, people will die on those hills. And so, yes,
100%.
I'm sure as in your shoes, it sucks because, yeah, everybody starts coming for you. But at the same point, all right, hey, you look at your people and you're like, hey, we bought the right folks, or we acquired the right folks.
Yeah.
These are people that people care so much about and they fish so hard. As long as we're good stewards of this brand, we will be okay.
Yeah, that's the way we approach it, man. And kind of to speak to that point, how dumb would I be to go, hey, first thing we're going to do is cheapen that Cinco up? Like, how dumb would that be?
Well,
literally, it wouldn't be here very long.
No,
right?
your tires
I would be
flat,
the wrong guy for
sure.
the job.
Yeah.
And like Gary, a lot of people don't know this about Dobbins. Gary still works for us.
Yeah.
Gary still does all the rod design to this day. He's working on new rods. I mean, I don't know if he's probably fishing right now, if I had to guess, but he's fishing probably with prototypes of new stuff we're working on. And they come from the exact same factories that they came from when we bought them. And like, what cracks me up about that Dobbins community, which I love the passion because that's me at my core, but it's like, you see people go pre-GSM Dobbins. And I'm like,
yeah,
we haven't even sold through all the inventory.
I was about to ask.
Like
you might not have even gone through everything that you acquired yet.
No, not even close. Gary was a big fan of buying in bulk.
Yeah.
So,
and you have to be. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. That's how, getting back to that leverage thing, right? That's how you can make something affordable, is just buy more of it and get a better price. And we can do that where a smaller company can't always do that.
So I want to ask, though, about the different production processes for these brands, because that's got to have its own set of challenges, because as you are trying to, create leverage for these people, it creates an issue if, company A uses, Fuji guides and company B uses C guides. Well, then, okay, we can't go to these distributors now and say, well, now I'm buying for two brands, because I'm not, because they're using two separate things. So are there ever instances where you have to try and homogenize things a little bit?
Yeah, there are, but you just kind of, once again, not patting myself on the back, but we've got people that are, my brand manager over the rod category is a guy named Vince Borges, who was one of the owners of Phoenix. The guy's been in the rod game for 20 years. And like Vince knows, okay, hey, look, this guide is a critical part of what makes a Dobbins Ecstasy series. We're not changing that. I don't care what happens. Like, you can't, it's the Cinco thing. We're not changing the way we make Cincos to make them cheaper. Even if we need to build a new rod series and we need a good deal on some guides, I'm not going to a Fuji C guide, whoever, and going, hey, we'll swap these to this if you'll give us a better deal. Like, literally, the conversation would be, we're going to sell enough of these, cumulatively, And down the road, when we develop a new series, we'll work this in.
That makes
So
sense.
yeah, we don't make a habit of just changing things to get a better deal. We literally, honestly, probably. I mean, I don't want this to be a shot at anybody else. I feel like we maybe do that less than anybody in the industry. It happens. It happens very little here. So
What about the actual processes themselves? I mean, like that's a great example in the soft plastic game. I don't know how much people know, but like the way that a robo worm is shot is completely different than the way that a Yamamoto Senko is shot. And so
yeah,
can you bring those all under one like production house and just have people doing different things, or are they still completely separate?
they're completely different. Yamamoto to this day is still made in Page, Arizona. Um, Big Bite is built in Eufaula, Alabama. Now, we did move when we bought Robo, we moved all of Greg's machinery to that Eufaula, Alabama location.
Okay.
Scott Montgomery still runs it, who his family started Big Bite. Like he's grown up in it. He is a master when it comes to pouring soft plastics. And there's not a scenario you can throw at him he hasn't experienced. So we had Greg fly out there to Eufaula and spend 2 weeks with Scott or however long and go, okay, this is how this works. This is the problems you'll have. This is how you address them. When this happens, do this, so forth. But like Robo's built over here because it's so uniquely different than Big Bite, albeit they're under the same roof. But then, all your Yamamoto special plastic, I'll just say that, comes out of Arizona still, and it's nothing like what's done at Big Bite. So it's there. They are, when I tell you that you have to look at each brand, you fight nominal changes to maintain the uniqueness because the nominal changes aren't worth it. Right. Does that make sense?
100%. You have said that in a lot of these brands, you've been able to keep some of the key people in that brand for, last 3, 4, 5 years. Now, the other interesting part of that is you guys are still fairly young. You're 5 years basically into the fishing space. How long do you think or is your goal to keep these people involved that were actually crucial to the brands originally? Like, is that and again, if I'm speaking out of turn, I apologize, but it's like,
No, it's okay.
Is it when we acquire someone, hey, we want you to stay on for at least 5 years or 10 years, and then you leave because at that point you have enough knowledge of the business that you could seemingly run it and you know how to do this without that person? Or are these people supposed to be in it for the long haul?
We thus far, all I can speak for is my group, my team, my division. Thus far, in 4.5 years, we've had one person leave.
Okay.
We're a family, and I know that's a bit cliche probably, but I'm telling you the culture we have, I think people who like this industry and like to fish would be hard pressed to find something they enjoy doing better than doing it with this group of people. So that means the world to me. But I would tell you that one of the statements I've made a couple times is we are in the business of acquiring talent because talent is really what moves the needle. You're in the baseball business. What does a talented player do for a ball team? Right? Like it does everything. Crowds come to see him. Your box scores better. Like talent matters, and talent on our team matters equally. So I've not gone into a single one of these where I said, "Hey, we want you to teach us how to do your job." Like we've gone into each of these, and there's been a lot of people we haven't extended an offer to, right?
Yeah.
And that's just part of it too. Like that's the toughest part, if I were being honest. When you go buy a company and go, we've got all these people in the warehouse. Well, we have a 800,000 square foot warehouse in Dallas. I don't need all these people too, right? Like, but I mean, that's the business part of it. Thankfully, I don't have to do a whole lot of that because I'm too soft-hearted for that job. But with that being said, I would tell you everybody that we've gone into an acquisition, and go, that's our guy, that's our gal, that's who we want. They are special to this brand, and we do everything we can to retain them and keep them part of the team as long as they want to be.
So a last couple questions here then. One,
Sure.
are you guys done growing, or are you still in what I would call that kind of like aggressive growth mindset?
I would tell you that I could be completely happy just focused on what we have today, but that's not the case. We've got 3 or 4 things cooking right now. We've got some long-term things that we've been working on that I can kind of start to see getting a little closer on the horizon. It's to me, it's not about having this number of brands or being this big. It's literally just, what can you do to bring value to your portfolio, to your customer, being the retailers and the angler, right? So it's very multifaceted to me. It's the angler sees it from through their lenses, but I've got to make those guys happy and make the retailer happy, right? So our portfolio is eventually going to be comprised of brands that we felt like accentuated one another and complemented one another. And to your point, I don't need 2 soft plastic brands in the exact same price point that kind of do the same thing. That doesn't make any sense. So, there's some of them that you go, oh yeah, absolutely. If I ever get an opportunity to buy that brand, 100% in. There's some of them that, somebody goes, man, their numbers are really good. And you go, it just doesn't fit. I had to do a presentation a while back, and I did a lot of research within our 4.5 years. We own 16 brands. We have walked away from or said no to or politely declined somewhere about 200 opportunities in 16 years. 200.
So you're
It's
getting
insane.
a lot of people reaching out to you then.
100% more.
Okay.
As much as we are pursuing some certain opportunities, every other day I get a phone call, text, email, Facebook message, whatever, from someone going, or a lot of times it's a pretty well-known brand in the industry that goes, hey, I'm just thinking about it. I'm just thinking about my exit strategy.
Yep. Throwing the
And
feelers
you guys
out there.
seem to be the people to talk to, right?
Yeah.
And hey, it's a fair conversation, because if I was in their shoes, I would want to go, well, what's the advantage of selling this thing to GSM, or we're selling it to, some of the your Pure or Pradco, or rather whoever,
Yep.
that we're all uniquely different. So I have a lot of those conversations that may never come to fruition, but the current ownership's going, what would it look like? And I'll go, hey, call Gary Dobbins. Here's his phone number. He's the best example I can give you. Call Vince, who actually still works with me, but we bought Phoenix. He was an owner. So I mean, it is. I would tell you we're not nearly done. I mean, GSM has 50-ish hunt shoot brands.
Yeah.
And we have 16 fishing brands. So I don't, based on their track record, as much as this gives me a bit of anxiety, and I don't know if I've ever said I've had anxiety before. My hands are getting sweaty thinking about this, but I would say we're probably not close to being done.
So my last question here then, and by the way, this has been awesome. I appreciate you hopping on and shedding some light on this. This is so cool.
Sure.
GSM itself. So you've been there for, better part of, I think, 5 years, you said now. What do you think is GSM's unique differentiator or calling card or selling point compared to a, Pure Fishing, a Pradco, a House of Outdoors, rather, Rapala VMC, people like that? What is it about GSM? You've been around the industry for a long time that you think is special about your group?
I'm going to tell you the same thing everybody's going to say, but I mean it wholeheartedly, and it's my group. I mean, you said your group. It is my group. It is the difference maker. It's not, and I know I say this at the risk of one of your listeners is going to go, oh my God, if he says culture again, I'm going to vomit. But it's that's the deal. That's the secret sauce. I mean, it is. We literally had a call today for 2 hours talking about, hey, what did you see that was cool at the Classic? Or, like, hey, did you see so and so caught them this weekend on this? Like, that is our normal SOP, man.
Yeah.
Who caught what this weekend? Like, hey, did you test this new this? And it's the once again, it's the least, like, I think people would be amazed at how not corporate we are. Like, amazed. I would never fit in a corporate environment. I just wouldn't. I can go show up and present, what I need to for the fishing division, and then I walk outside, take my button down, put my Skeeter hoodie back on, and like, get in my four-wheel drive truck and drive off. Like, that's not me, and it's nobody on my team. And I, at the risk of saying what everyone else says, what makes us special is just a group of people who probably, and I don't mean this as there's a lot of people at those other companies that you mentioned that I absolutely, I mean, I tell them I love them when we get off the phone, and I mean it. But this is like, this team of people in my mind relates to the end user better than any team of people I've ever worked with. Like, it just matters. Like, if we weren't building it, we'd be buying it, and we're buying the stuff that's like it. And it's just not, it's not a bunch of people trying to make money. It's a bunch of people trying to make stuff that people catch fish on, and by proxy, you make money, right? Like, I told a guy the other day, my dream and all this, whenever I'm too old to do this anymore, I want people to go, that guy helped a lot of people catch fish. Like, that matters more to me than any title, than bank accounts. And everybody's going, yeah, right. Well, you don't know me. People know me, would go, yeah, he's telling the truth. Like, that's what matters to us, and that's what sets us apart.
That's why these episodes are so cool. It's like you mentioned earlier, we're the least corporate. I think if you polled people on the street, it's just because you guys are the ones that have been acquiring lately. And so, you get the sour people out there every once in a while. It's like, oh, it's the most corporate. It's like, I don't know. That's why I wanted to do these episodes. It's like, I think you would probably be pleasantly surprised if you met the people behind these big parent companies, and how they make their decisions and how they go about their business is not like these 7 Facebook comments you read that say they're running everything into the ground and they just are penny pinching. Like, there's probably a little bit more to it than that.
Oh, I told my wife today that we scheduled our meeting for later this week around what days the wind weren't blowing so we could fish. Like,
that's awesome.
that's what we do. It's who we are. And I mean, whether the world knows, understands, or accepts that or not, it's irrelevant. We're going to be true to what we think's the right way to run these brands, and the right way to treat our customers. That's what ultimately matters. If we do that, we don't do that well, you're not talking to me anyway. Somebody else is doing this. So,
well, Crispin, thank you so much for stopping by. I appreciate you giving us the chance to kind of learn a little bit more about everything that goes on at GSM. And, obviously we will put in the show description the links to the brands and everything that you guys have under your umbrella. And I know most people know that by now, but I can't thank you enough for stopping by. This has been a real treat, and we appreciate it so much.
Man, I can't thank you enough for having me. And I told you before we got on, we're going to talk about my favorite topic, fishing tackle. I don't sit around and talk golf. I don't sit around, this is what I talk about when I'm not working. It's what I talk about when I'm working.
That's what I said when I started this show back in the day. I was like, oh yeah, twist my arm to sit down for like an hour a week and talk about fishing.
100%. Yeah, I could do this. I would love to do what you do, because I would love to talk to so many different people about this thing we all love, right?
Well, awesome. Crispin, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Thank you.
All right, everybody, that is our episode today with Mr. Crispin Powley, the Senior Vice President of Fishing at GSM Outdoors. And that concludes episode 1 of the Big Four. So we greatly appreciate Crispin's time and allowing us to kind of peel back the layers of GSM Outdoors in a way that I don't think I've really heard done before. So thank you to Crispin. We appreciate it. I know I appreciate him sitting down and having the level of trust of us to actually ask some of the questions that we got to ask. And like I said, get a real true look behind the scenes at what probably is the most aggressive in terms of acquisitions currently of these big four, and really helps us kind of understand what it is that GSM is all about currently. Okay, everybody, 1 down. We got 3 to go in this series, and next week's episode will feature our full sit down with the president of Rapala VMC USA, Mr. Travis Tuma. And it is another great episode in this series that I'm really excited to share with you all. But in the meantime, find us on our website, tackletalkpodcast.com. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram at Tackle Talk Podcast. Email us at tackletalkpodcast@gmail.com. And I'll see you guys right back here next Tuesday for episode 2 of the Big Four, right here on the Tackle Talk Podcast.
Thank you for listening to the Tackle Talk Podcast. Tackle Talk is produced by Andrew Hayes. Copyright 2019. For more, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts.